narrative changing, other than the fact that Bihar and Andhra have managed to get a lion's share of the budget allocations and announcements simply because of the political reality of Modi 3.0 government, and that is that they're dependent on allies in Bihar and Andhra for their political
Rajat Dhar and Saket Mishra with us. Yes, Rajat.
Hi. So, like much of the things have already been covered by the blue-eyed boys here, right from Mohandas Pai and our respected panelists here. So, I will be touching those things, those which have not been touched, जिनका दिल टूटा है, तो हम उसके बारे में बात करेंगे सर. So, first and foremost, when we're talking about the outlay into the infrastructure, the main pain point is private investments in infrastructure are not happening by private players when it comes to roads and railways. So, are there any incentive how the government is going to tackle that? Government is not going to spend everything in totally on roads and railways. So when we talk about infrastructure development and particularly roads and railways, so how you would get private sector participation in that? However, private spending is concerned, even the bank's data has told that there has been an increase of 1 lakh crore in terms of financing raised by private players in their capex. So that is not a problem. They are spending money, but they are not spending money in roads and railway projects. Point number one. Point number two that comes is with regard to the TCS. The TCS had gone to 20% for the smaller and the bigger players, except those who are going for foreign educations. So that has to come down. Like on one level, you are talking about gold and everything. Now you see how much gold we are importing and how many people are traveling now outside. Even from the middle class people taking loans so as to ensure that भाई एक foreign trip करनी है, or they have to go outside. So that 20% of the TCS that has been done, that had to be rationalized, which I believe, if I have not missed it, that has not been
no, it's not been announced.
Another thing, when we are talking about making India competitive in the global landscape, and I would say that there is one industry segment that is actually crashing down and nobody is saying, looking at that, that is the aviation. But what is the pain point? There is an Indian Airlines and there is a foreign players. Foreign players can get their jets fueled outside and come India. Why? Because in India there is a GST. So why the aviation fuel of the GST has not been addressed? So that could provide benefit to the Indian Airlines and they become more competitive on the landscape, so that at least they get some breather. And there will be a butchering happening on there, but at least they will be competitive on a global scale. हम global supply chain की बात करते हैं, global competitiveness की बात करते हैं, and you have an airline industry, you have Vistara, you have everything, but they are competing with the GST load on their heads and not competing as far as the cost, which is one of the main like fuel considered there.
Okay, just hold your thoughts. I've got.
GST is not covered.
Aviation fuel,
ATF is not part of GST.
Yes. But then that has to be worked into, no? Because.
But I mean, it can't done the budget, of course. But FM did say that there will be reduction in bands and
it's going to happen. It's on the offing, but it's a consolidated fiscal policy reform that is going to be announced very, very soon. Just quickly going across to CII, Avantika, over to you.
The youth on skilling. Right, Anand, I have with me Deepak Shetty, CEO, MD, JCB India, and I have Ipshita Dasgupta. She's the MD, Senior VP with HP India. Anand, you know, the mood here has been very positive about the budget. Many are calling it progressive, comprehensive, and bold as well. Ipshita, coming to you now, the first-time employee scheme, so much emphasis on skilling, on job creation, on youth, on women. How did you feel about the budget?
Absolutely. I think you said it, Avantika, when you said it's a progressive and also a very substantive budget for the country that is the workforce of the future for the world. The emphasis on first-time employees and direct benefit transfers to them, the emphasis on MSMEs and helping them in job creation in manufacturing, the focus on skilling and the holistic focus on female employment is huge and really quite impressive. I think what's interesting to see is what are the next things that we need to think about, which are around things like technology and the enablement of technology. But the budget has really captured the importance of the workforce, productivity, and creating an environment that nurtures first-time employment.
Mr. Shetty, would you concur? Because the hallmark of this government has been its discipline to fiscal deficit. You know, that is something that is commendable. It is very cautious as far as expenditures are concerned, and that's driven by very robust economic growth, by very good tax collections as well. Your thoughts? There hasn't really been an infra capex as far as this budget is concerned, but how do you view the budget?
I think you have said it, Avantika, very well. I think it's a very comprehensive budget. But what we have seen in the other parts of the world, that growth has come, but people have taken their eye away from the fundamentals of the economy. The fiscal prudence sometimes has been given a go-by. What the finance minister has demonstrated, and this is not this year itself, last few years, that India has been growing, but there is also while keeping an eye on the fiscal prudence part, and that makes it a very robust growth and a sustainable growth. So, which is a very positive.
Case, right? This government traditionally has walked on the path of fiscal prudence over speculations of populism. And that, it seems, has also worked in its favor.
No, absolutely. And more importantly, some of the sectors, for example, focus on infrastructure has continued. And we all know that infrastructure has a multiplier effect on the economy. Now, even before this budget also, people were talking about that there will be pressures and maybe the focus will be less on infrastructure. But I really want to congratulate the Honorable Finance Minister. She has continued the focus that the government has by the 11.1 lakh crores investment on capex in infrastructure, which is again very positive. But to top it up, she has also added the 3 crore houses, and I think one of the biggest initiatives has been the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, which in the past has created the economic buzz in the rural hamlets.
Right.
And this whole idea of connecting 25,000 habitats, I'm sure will be very, very positive.
Absolutely. So, thumbs up then to the budget. Good positive feedback there and reactions coming in to the budget, Anand. Back to the studio.
While you carry on your conversations, a lot of buzz there at the CII. Saket Mishra is with us. I'm just reading out what Nitin Kamath has just put out of Zerodha. He's put out budget summary for us from their perspective. STT on options goes up from 0.062 to 0.1%. STT on futures goes up from 0.0125% to 0.02% from 1st of October. We collected about 1,500 crore of STT last year at Zerodha offline. If the volumes don't drop, this will increase to about 2,500 crore at new rates. The capital gains tax has been increased from 10% to 12.5%, and it will apply from today. If the idea was to cool down the activity in the markets, this might just do the trick.
So, I mean, I think it's a very sector-based overreaction.
Absolutely.
I don't think if people are trading on the basis of taxes, they shouldn't be in the business of trading to begin with. So, I think there are some very, very good signs in this budget. First is that the government, in its investing and spending, has stuck to things that the private sector can't do. So, if you look at disaster management, flood relief, all that will require huge amounts of construction that creates jobs. And those are things that you will not see happening in the private sector. Second is that for the first time, there is a linkage between, and we were discussing this in the morning, that the kind of people that we're churning out from our skilling programs almost have no employable qualities. For the first time, forcing people to go through internships, etc. We are going to see a reflection, and I think, I mean, to be fair, the Telangana government did it pretty well when they brought in the Airbus factories there, that we are getting people who will be trained fit for purpose for particular jobs in the sector. So I think that's been quite a good thing. The energy transition, if they can get the nuclear modular things done right, is a huge jump and a change.
We haven't talked about that at all.
It's
all
a
the
huge change.
Science and technology.
Correct. It's big.
Push for productivity.
My only
R&D funding.
Yeah. My only sort of negative on this budget, I would have gone for slightly more aggressive PSU divestment.
Exactly, the P word.
Because I don't think there is any politics there. We can actually have money being raised, and I mean, everybody that comes in doesn't necessarily start firing people. But we need to have, and the Eco Survey said that, right? They said we should stick to things that we are good at. And the government should not be in things that the private sector can do better. They should be regulating those things, which is the other piece that I think we need to actually have. Let's say monopoly practices continue to be monitored, so we don't have concentration of market shares.
So being on the financial side, like Sir rightly said, starting from the Kamath brothers, I will really say one thing. While he is in the business of trading, but their customers are in the business of betting, So it is like it is an MPL version actual, people are there hooked to make money in F&O. And obviously the repercussion is they are getting a revenue out of it. Now they are using that revenue to discount every other services they are providing. And from the competitive landscape, they are also culling out businesses. Angel One had already announced a week back that they are now moving out of this free trading to a chargeable trading, because SEBI had made the guideline, you should have a rational at the end of you should trade. So that is first aspect of it. Second aspect is like because we are from the financial world, when you look at the financial world, you have to see who is the end beneficiary and what is the main rationale or intent by which. Trading is technically for the hedging. Even if you are speculating, then there should be norms for it. You can't have one thing subsiding other thing, and then you wipe out the whole fraternity of the channel partners or the businesses who are there just because you are having competitive edge.
Right.
Like in e-commerce, they are getting all those people who are on the floor doing business like Kiryana, small shops, they are going off the business. So this is like government comes, they make regulations so that all players are having a level field.
Everybody has some say
and this was better late than never. This had to come.
Game. Just quickly going back to CII and Avantika, Mr. Munjal is sitting with her. Yeah, Avantika.
Yes, Anand. Thank you so much. I have with me Sunil Kant Munjal. He's the chairman of the Hero Enterprise. Mr. Munjal, India's economic narrative today is about the resilience of its growth amid geopolitical uncertainty and global weakness. In that scenario, how do you rate today's budget?
I think it's a very mature, very well thought through and forward-looking budget. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. One is the finance minister has contained the fiscal deficit at 4.9% despite all the compulsions, many internal and, as you said, many external. And there was an expectation that this is the new era, a new age of coalition politics, that the government will end up throwing money at some of the schemes, which she has not done at all, because she's not just announced a 4.9% of this year. She said we will go down to 4.5% deficit next year, and at the same time she's also said the government's borrowing program year on year subsequently will reduce as a percentage of GDP every single year. I think very sensible, very smart, very mature. At the same time, she recognizes the different triggers for growth and the growth engines, not just focusing on the rural development, but also looking at cities as engines of economic development. Identified 100 cities which will get development. We are already, of course, working on developing airports and ports and highways and roads and bridges. And she's also spread the effort around across to small industry, to job creation, which is a big challenge, as we know at the moment.
There's a recognition of that. There's a realization.
Absolutely.
So much emphasis on
exactly. So it's both. It's saying we recognize there's an issue,
yes,
but we are willing to address it. This is what we are doing to address it. So they've provided support. Of course, the business case for additional hiring is yet to be fully understood, but they've actually laid the groundwork for it, saying we will incentivize the individual by direct benefit, by literally money in their banks, and we will incentivize companies who hire more. For large companies, they've announced the internship scheme. So it's been quite well spread across different sectors, all the way from agriculture to nuclear energy and sustainability and everything in between. Also the focus on skills, the focus on education alike, and the encouragement or cleaning up the complexities and difficulties that had sprung up in the world of startups. Because as a country, we need to continue to create economic opportunities. We do know that existing large companies over a period of time do not keep creating more jobs, because for higher efficiency, they have to automate more, they have to put in more robotics. So creating large number of jobs becomes a challenge. This is the only productive, positive way of doing it. So I'm glad they've taken off things like the angel tax, etc., which had become an unnecessary irritant around the world. And we have been suggesting this. Look at the model in the UK, look at the model in Canada, look at the model in the US.
Right.
Even companies with loss making, you get a full write-off as an investor. So we had actually gone the other extreme and actually taxed the investors into these companies. So I'm very glad that we've recognized these problems and addressed them squarely.
Okay. Right, Mr. Munjal. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Mr.
Thank
Munjal,
you.
they're sharing his thoughts about the budget and calling it quite a mature
Avantika, if you can
budget
quick.
as well. Back
Okay,
to
all right. Thanks for that, Avantika. What we would like to do is also quickly just have come back onto the board, because now the budget's been presented, it's been tabled. So let's get everybody and ask them 3 things they like about the budget, 3 things they don't like about the budget. So you can.
I think the focus on jobs is a big positive. I think,
Jobs,
as
okay.
Mr. Munjal said, there was a realization that there is a problem, and there is an acceptance that, okay, these are the things that we need to try and do to address the jobs question. The political reality again has been accepted that Bihar and Andhra this government depends on the allies in Bihar and Andhra, and therefore they've given a large number of allocations to those two states. So again, it is responding to the mandate of 2024. The negatives, I think, the stock market reacting in the way that it has is certainly on the back of LTCG and STCG. I think both of it going up is a negative as the market sees it. You could sort of say it's to try and curb out the speculation. There's too much, hot money going into FNO and all the speculative trading stuff. But fact is that I suspect, look, I'm not a financial expert, I'm not a market expert, but if the prevailing feeling was, and no less than, folks at SEBI were saying this, that there is some overheating in the market, I think this could be the trigger for some correction.
I think many say that it's balancing of the asset class. You don't choose an asset class or where you're investing in based on the LTCG. Yeah. So you've just brought in a certain parity, and you were just talking about it. So let me bring you, and then Charanya and Mahesh Jogani are also with us. We'll go across to them also. Yes.
See, I think the good things, if you see in terms of what has happened, very specifically with MSMEs, the two good things that have happened is the credit support during stressed times. I think that's been a huge learning, post-COVID, where you need to keep some channel of finances open for MSMEs during stressed time. The credit guarantee, of course, has been happening, but that was good. And the TREDS, the lowering of, the eligibility from 500 to 250, that's good. The other one is, I think, this entire conversation in terms of environment, there are three big things. There was the green taxonomy, which we're finally going to start on. There is a path for the hard-to-abate sectors, which is also excellent, where you're moving to emissions rather than efficiency. And the entire Bharat small nuclear reactors in terms of throwing nuclear energy finally into the mix. However, that taking off, I believe, will be incumbent upon how you're actually writing your green taxonomy. Because currently, internationally, nuclear doesn't fall under green. But if we can manage to bring nuclear under green, you will get sorted out with your investments as well. And of course, gold I kept talking about. So I'm very happy about gold, the drop in import duty from 15 to 6%, because that will drive manufacturing and consumption immediately, especially with wedding season.
Okay, what you don't like? Downside.
Downside. I don't think much has been done for women. The stamp duty was great, but otherwise I think it's more general. Hostels and creche is fine, but if you get into the minutiae, there's the outlay, but there is no really any way in which you can connect how this is going to help either increase labor force participation or otherwise.
Where are they spending the 3 lakh
Where
crore?
are they spending? I don't know. And certainly creches and working women hostels will play a very, very small part. That's one. Nothing again on, I think, disinvestment, which I think is a huge problem. That they haven't said anything at all is
on what?
Disinvestment.
Yeah.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing. And I think with MSMEs also, given what was said in the economic survey and what we've discussed, that you have various kinds of MSMEs, repeatedly the focus seems to be on the medium and the larger side of medium and the larger side of small, rather than the nano and the smaller businesses.
Okay.
And I think they keep getting left out of your policy discourse.
Nano and small businesses left out.
Yeah, left out of your this.
Okay,
so
let's take it out of the studio for a second. Yes, Charanya. Three things you like and 2-3 things you don't like.
Absolutely. I think what I do like is dispute resolution, the impetus that they have with respect to wanting to reduce litigation. This I'm seeing it across income tax with the schemes, the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, increasing the monetary limits. From a GST, they've introduced Section 11A, which gives them a power to waive off retrospective demands. So that's great. From energy and critical minerals, as I said, that's a great plus for us. We are moving towards being a very meaningful addition in the global supply chain, which means we need to have energy efficiency, we need to have transparent supply chains, and bringing this is very, very crucial. That is the other thing. The third thing that I did like is, again, the push for manufacturing. The MSME credit schemes, all of those are going to be very positive impetus for that sector. What I did not like, of course, I think I'm echoing a lot what other people are saying, the securities transaction tax, tax on buyback, that's going to have an impact. on the investors. And I would have liked to see a little more investment in the infrastructure sector in a slightly more meaningful manner.
Okay, okay. Slightly more meaningful manner.
Maybe,
Okay, meaningful
yeah,
info.
I know there is a lot of impetus, and I know that Mr. Pai did say that there are certain parts of the country there is an impetus.
Yeah.
But I think a more widened
Right. You would have expected a wider spread and perhaps and some more detailing. Some more detailing. Mahesh.
And no great tax breaks I'm seeing in that sector. That's why.
Okay. No tax breaks here. No tax breaks here. Okay. No tax breaks. Private investment into roads and core infra, that's also not something that Rajat had spoken about. I'll come to Rajat in a bit. Mahesh, and then we'll bring it to Gautam, Rajat and Naveen. Yes. Rajiv, beg your pardon. Yeah.
I like most in this budget is a focus on MSME. We can start with this Mudra loan. So from increasing the limit, many small entrepreneur can get access to some small sort of industry.
Yeah.
Another thing I like most is this 100 industrial park. This is a really welcome initiative for the government, because India is a vast country, and if we want to grow homogeneously, we need to defocus our development from metro city to small towns. So this makes a very good initiative. Third, I like most is this Prime Minister skill upliftment and industry. And yes, that joint program, that's very much a welcome move in this budget. And what I dislike is I expecting some big ticket tax reform, which I guess this is a flat budget on reform part. We didn't see much bold reform in this budget. Other thing, government is in a very good position to give some more relief, more money on hand of taxpayers, so that we don't see in this budget.
Okay, more money in the hand of the taxpayer, not there.
Yeah, I mean, increasing tax slate and giving some more relief.
Some more relief.
Thing, what I understand is they can give more relief to deduction for businesses like patent innovation. If we think growing India, creating more startups, patents fees can be put off in balance sheet for an entrepreneur.
All right. Now, Gautam.
I like the fact that they are going in for next generation reforms. Land, labor, capital is predictable. But she mentioned in passing, and I still need to read the speech to confirm, she mentioned entrepreneurship as a factor of as a factor reform. And I think this is the first time this is music to my ears. People think entrepreneurs are just random people. They are a factor of production because they are the people who bring land, labor and capital together.
Correct.
So I think if we are going to see reforms there, it probably means a greater focus on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
I like the fact, it's a small point I want to make, which is the urban reforms that she's talking about. She's talking about throwing money out there to make cities better.
Yes.
In my opinion, that's not adequate. I think you need governance reforms. Somebody responsible, because right now cities are governed by the states.
So there's some mention on urban local bodies as well.
Getting more
I think I would like to see what are the governance reforms that complement this kind of money. Third is, she mentioned disinvestment. Over the past 1 year, the PSU index has doubled. It's valued at around 14 lakh crore. I think that's a lot of money. Even a 5% disinvestment announcement there, which I was expecting, by the way. Simply because the market has run up and and they have put disinvestment as one of their policies. She mentioned 2 budgets ago that except for 3 or 4 critical sectors, all PSUs will be disinvested, keeping 1 or 2. So I think this at 80,000 Sensex.
Bare minimum presence actually.
They should have
this would be a good point. Why she missed it, I don't know. Maybe she's confident about getting money from elsewhere, and that 5.8 fiscal deficit is fantastic. I didn't believe it would happen. It is not even required, but the fact that she has done so is very good. Finally, she's got 3 futuristic messages here. One is critical minerals. What energy is today, critical minerals will be tomorrow. So if there is a critical minerals mission that she is planning to put, and we've heard this from Narendra Modi earlier, I think this is a continuity. It is also futuristic. Not tomorrow, not next year, but it's a 5-year, 10-year horizon. So this is a good time to invest policy attention in critical minerals. Second is the small power plant, nuclear plants.
I think she spoke about this.
I think that's a very nice thing. Finally, one criticism, not criticism, I need to, observation. It's an observation. Now, capital gains has been reduced, long-term capital gains has been reduced from 20 to 15, which is fine. And it's been increased for
12.5
in real estate to 12.5 and for financial assets to 12.8. Along with that, indexation has gone away. Okay, so this will impact real estate investors adversely.
Okay,
because I think most real estate over the past 8 to 10 years, maybe 12 years.
Is that applicable on from today or
for past? Right away?
No, but let's say past gains.
I don't know. So that's the fine print that I need to read.
We'll need to read
it will mean that, and it can be bad for real estate investors, but in my opinion, this will be good because it will create a greater financialization which the economy
needs. And you'll have more of it happening in white rather than black.
Yes, exactly.
With that coming down,
reduction
that's
in tax like that.
I see this shift. It is a financialization shift.
Okay, I'm being pushed to take
from
a break,
real
but
assets
two people
to
have not
financial
spoken,
assets.
so I'm going to take just 2 more minutes and get Rajat and Rajiv's thoughts also.
Thanks so much. My critical inputs will be on 2 counts. Say for example, at one end of the spectrum, they are very positive on the lowest end of the spectrum. The people who needed the tax rebate more. At the other end, yes, business houses, infrastructure, sectorial implications, rural, everything is set at end. But in between, a person who is earning say 20 lakhs or 15 lakhs, he was expecting that at least 20 lakhs and above the exemptions could be there, because let me put a statistics for last 3 years. A person living in New Delhi NCR taking a property of 1 crore or less is not possible. So you are going to take a 1 crore of the property. Now if we go by the real estate consulting firms data for the last 5 years, the annual appreciation in the property is around 10 to 12%. 12%, let's take it 10%. So by the time we are into the next budget, the property of 1 crore is 1 crore 10 lakhs. Now if you are saying that हमने जी 25,000 का 50,000 कर दिया, आपका 75,000 का ये कर दिया, where it will put into the picture. So when you're talking about roti, kapda and makan, and it is the makan that holds the much of the corpus of the monthly EMI that goes into it. Say even if a person is working in Deloitte and taking a 3 lakh of the salary, his 70,000, 80,000 will go into the EMI. So if the real estate is expanding at such a faster pace, where does this budget
Where is the money coming in my hand? Because some things become ill affordable for me.
The problem is we are looking at these things in a separate case and not in entirety. Now, if I just put it one case, when you are talking about disinvestment, when the disinvestment word was coined, it was coined in 1992 when the Indian borders were open for global business. At that time, it was 2,500 crore. In 2021, it was 2.5 lakh crore of disinvestment done. Now the government is saying no word disinvestment is used, but they are using is, you can say is a capital receipts, miscellaneous capital receipts. If you go by the term, why they use that miscellaneous capital receipts? Because they believe in taking money like dividends from RBI. So in the sub note, they have mentioned that we are looking at improvising the companies, making it profitable, doing the value addition. So if they are doing the value addition, then you are part of the business where your job is part of the governance. On the other end, they are saying that, okay, we want to be in core sector with the minimum inclusion, and rest we will exit out of it.
So is it really minimum government, maximum governance? That's what you're saying. That's not actually happening. Yes, Rajiv.
No, I just want to say one point on the direct tax reforms that are being already been announced to some degree, and also on the review of the IT Act. Income Tax Act, which the Finance Minister has proposed. I think we should be seeing or hearing more about that in the next budget in 6 months' time. I think this could be a monumental move. Direct tax reforms were long overdue. Much like we have completely overhauled our indirect taxes. Direct taxes were long overdue. And I think if we see that in the next 6 months, already we have seen a trailer of what is coming. So that is very, very valuable and important. Second thing is on the employee-linked incentive programs. Where for job creation, the government is going to give incentives based on workers entering the formal economy. So if you're becoming a registered employee, So along with the labor codes getting implemented, the employee-linked incentives, I think all of this together bodes very well to create formal jobs in the country. And that too obviously will tie into better tax revenues, people getting tied to the pension system, the EPFO money flowing back into capital markets. So it's a very virtuous cycle.
It will have a very virtuous
cycle.
It will happen. Anything that you are upset about?
Not upset, but
you're disappointed.
I share the concern on PSU privatization.
Yeah. So
I think the privatization word, we have to bring it back into the discussion and raise the question on when we will see, for example, companies like SAIL or other non-strategic companies that are run by the government of India being sold off.
Correct.
And I think there will be a tremendous demand for it. These kind of assets will see actually a bidding war.
I believe
so we should divest them at the right time.
Nirmala Sitharaman, I believe, have missed one thing, and that is the crucial enough. So when government or any person, when they are negotiating, they are removing that angel tax from one end. But I don't know if I might have missed that. If you are removing angel tax from one end, then are you proposing any implementation of stricter norms to monitor them? Because largest number of jobs that have been lost is into the startups.
So I'll come back to that. I'll go. Sorry, I've got to go across to CII. Avantika is with another guest. Yes, and then we'll come back and then get another comment. Yes, Avantika.
Thanks, Anand. I have with me Rajiv Mermani from Ernst & Young. Rajiv, so how did the budget fare in terms of job creation and, importantly, incentivizing the private sector to create jobs? 3 positives, 3 negatives about this budget.
So I would say very positive on overall. For jobs creation, the industry has to do well. I think there is a focus on macroeconomic stability. I think that plus ensuring that the fiscal deficit goes down. I think overall and consistency in policy. I would say that was the first one, which is very positive. Secondly, as we all heard in the budget, there are some radical steps that they have announced for people who are, especially in first-time employment. So the government is clearly realizing that a lot of people who are coming out of colleges and universities are actually not getting jobs. So a lot of focus on that and also on continued employment, both to the people who are joining and then the entire focus on people taking interns and everything else, and the number of 100,000 for top 500 companies period of 5 years. I think that's pretty significant. I would say that's been very positive. Thirdly, I think on the taxes side, taking things like just focusing on simplification, taking things like the angel tax away, saying that they'll be bringing the new tax code, and a lot of on the assessment side, I think bringing a lot of things. That's been very positive. On the personal tax side, I think they have given, at least for people who are in the new tax regime, people will be getting benefit of almost 18,000 rupees plus on NPS pensions and everything.
Okay, and what about the negatives? Like, where could the improvements?
So I would say the allocation to PLI, I would, that's not there. I would say that I was hoping that there would be greater focus on PLI. Likewise, on the energy transition side, on FAME 2, FAME 3, the EMPS scheme, at least I didn't see that there was any additional allocation for that. I would say those two would be there. Now, you could argue whether capital gains tax, whether they should have brought in at this stage or not.
But that was an ask from the industry as
that
well,
was,
right?
but that's been in the air that somewhere if you have to create relief, then you have to tax some segment higher, and the capital gain tax rates in India were on the lower side. So they've simplified, but I would say that would be the only thing. I think they could have probably given more on personal tax to the lower income slabs because that would have spurred consumption even more. But apart from that.
But overall, it's a thumbs up.
Very positive.
Yeah, very positive. All right, Mr. Mermani, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We will continue getting more reactions from CII and, of course, from the studio and all of the other industry experts on budget of the Modi government 3.0. Stay tuned to CNN News 18. Slipping into a short break, news and updates continue right here on CNN News 18.
You are watching CNN News 18 and DBS Budget Day Studio.
Can you start?
Land-related reforms and actions, both in the rural and urban areas, will cover land administration, will cover 1, land administration, planning and management, and 2, urban planning usage and building bylaws. These will be incentivized for completion within the next 3 years through appropriate fiscal support. Rural land-related actions. Rural land-related actions will include 1, assignment of unique land parcel identification number UL PIN or Bhu Aadhaar for all lands. 2. Digitization of cadastral maps. 3. Survey of map subdivisions as per current ownership. 4. Establishment of land registry. And 5. Linking to the farmers registry. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Urban land related actions. Land records in urban areas will be digitized with GIS mapping. An IT-based system for property record administration, updating, and tax administration will be established. These will also facilitate improving the financial position of urban local bodies. Labor-related reforms. Services to labor. Our government will facilitate the provision of a wide array of services to labor, including those for employment and skilling. A comprehensive integration of e-Shram portal with other portals will facilitate such one-stop solution. Open architecture databases for the rapidly changing labor market, skill requirements, and available job roles, and a mechanism to connect job aspirants with potential employers and skill providers will be covered in these services. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal will be revamped to enhance ease of compliance for industry and trade. Capital and entrepreneurship related. Rural land-related actions will include assignment of unique land parcel identification number, UL PIN, or Bhu Aadhaar for all lands. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Space economy. With our continued emphasis on expanding the space economy by 5 times in the next 10 years, a venture capital fund of 1,000 crore rupees will be set up.
Can you start?
Financial sector vision and strategy. For meeting financing needs of the economy, our government will bring out a financial sector vision and strategy document to prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity, and skills. This will set the agenda for the next 5 years and guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions, and market participants. Taxonomy for climate finance. We will develop taxonomy for climate finance for enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. This will support achievement of the country's climate commitments and green transition. Variable capital company structure. We will seek the required legislative approval for providing an efficient and flexible mode for financing leasing of aircrafts and ships and pooled funds of private equity through a variable company structure. Foreign direct investments. The rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments will be simplified to 1. Facilitate foreign direct investments, 2. Nudge prioritization, and 3. Promote currency for overseas investment. NPS Vatsalya. NPS Vatsalya, a plan for contribution by parents and guardians for minors, will be started. On attaining the age of majority, the plan can be converted seamlessly into a normal NPS account. Use of technology. We have successfully used technology for improving productivity and bridging inequality in our economy during the past 10 years. Public investment in digital infrastructure and innovations by the private sector have helped in improving access of all citizens, particularly the common people, to market resources, education, health and services. We will step up adoption of technology towards digitalization of the economy. Ease of doing business. For enhancing ease of doing business, we are already working on the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0.
You are watching CNN News 18 and DBS Budget Day Studio.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Shivani Gupta. You're watching our Budget Day coverage. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented her 7th consecutive union budget today. The government has hiked standard deduction to 75,000 rupees from current 50,000 under the new tax regime. This is one of the 2 direct tax benefits that have been announced today. Salaried employees will now stand to save 17,500 rupees in income tax annually, but this is under the new tax regime. The FM also announced employment-linked incentives based on enrollment into EPFO. It will focus on first-time employees and offer 1 month wage for all employees in the formal sector. Angel tax has been abolished for all classes of investors. Custom duty on gold and silver has been reduced. Additionally, the Finance Minister further informed the customs duty slash on platinum to 6.4%. A host of developmental projects for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh have also been announced. Remember, this is key politically because the BJP had to keep its key allies happy. Let's also go through some of the big focus today as far as jobs and youth are concerned. So as I mentioned, a number of schemes have been announced just for this sector. Remember, the Narendra Modi-led government ahead of the last 2024 general elections has been talking about 4 classes of individuals. These include farmers, women, poor and youth. And it would be safe to say that the major focus in this budget this time around has been on youth. So particularly with regards to job creation, employment and skilling, there have been a slew of announcements that have been made. So one of them is 1 month wages to all new entrants in the workforce, additional 1 month wages, employment incentive to first timers to benefit 2.1 crore youth, DBT of this 1 month pay in 3 tranches. 20 lakh youths are going to be skilled under a new scheme. Skill loan scheme will be revised for loans up to 7.5 lakhs. Up to 10 lakhs in loans for students in domestic institutions has also been announced. Internship allowance of 5,000 rupees per month and a one-time assistance of 6,000 rupees also to be given to these 1 crore individuals, youngsters who are going to be given internships in top 500 companies. Along with that is, of course, boosts, some that have been continued from the last time, some that have been continued or were first announced in the interim budget in February, and those will continue for the MSME sector. So, of course, there is credit guarantee scheme for the MSME, manufacturing sector, credit guarantee scheme for collateral-free loan, guarantee plan to enable loans up to 100 crores, PSU banks to make internal assessment model for MSMEs, limit of mudra loans has been enhanced to those who have already successfully paid the first time they took a mudra loan. So they can now avail from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs loans if you have successfully repaid the first time they took a mudra loan. And new expert hubs are also to be set up. All right, I want to go across to some of our guests now joining us. Amit Jaipuria, entrepreneur, founder and CEO, Postcard Travel Club, is joining us. Amit, thanks a lot for your time. What's the big headline for you today?
Well, the big headline is I think travel is going to be interesting moving forward. I think, we need to sort of start looking at.
देशवासियों को बधाई देता हूं। वित्त मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी और उनकी पूरी टीम बहुत बहुत बधाई की पात्र है। साथियों, ये बजट समाज के हर वर्ग को शक्ति देने वाला बजट है। ये देश के गांव, गरीब किसान को समृद्धि की राह पर ले जाने वाला बजट है। पिछले 10 वर्षों में 25 करोड़ लोग गरीबी से बाहर निकले हैं। ये जो न्यू मिडिल क्लास बना है, ये बजट उनके सशक्तिकरण की निरंतरता का बजट है। इन नौजवानों को अनगिनत नए अवसर देने वाला बजट है। इस बजट से शिक्षा और स्किल को नई स्केल मिलेगी। ये मिडिल क्लास को नई ताकत देने वाला बजट है। ये जनजातीय समाज, दलित, पिछड़ों को सशक्त करने की मजबूत योजनाओं के साथ आया है। इस बजट से महिलाओं की आर्थिक भागीदारी सुनिश्चित करने में मदद मिलेगी। इस बजट से छोटे व्यापारियों, एमएसएमईज को यानी कि लघु उद्योगों का उसकी प्रगति का नया रास्ता मिलेगा। बजट में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पर भी बल है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर भी बल है। इससे आर्थिक विकास को नई गति मिलेगी और गति को भी निरंतरता मिलेगी। साथियों, रोजगार और स्वरोजगार के अभूतपूर्व अवसर बढ़, ये हमारी सरकार की पहचान रही है। आज का बजट इसे और सुदृढ़ करता है। देश और दुनिया ने पीएलआई स्कीम की सफलता देखी है। अब इस बजट में सरकार ने एम्प्लॉयमेंट लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव स्कीम की घोषणा की है। इससे देश में करोड़ों करोड़ों नए रोजगार बनेंगे। इस योजना के तहत जीवन में पहली नौकरी पाने वाले युवा की पहली तनख्वाह हमारी सरकार देगी। स्किल डेवलपमेंट और उच्च शिक्षा के लिए मदद हो या फिर 1 करोड़ नौजवानों को इंटर्नशिप की योजना, इससे गांव के, गरीब के मेरे नौजवान साथी, मेरे बेटे बेटी देश की टॉप कंपनियों में काम करेंगे। उनके सामने संभावनाओं के नए द्वार खुलेंगे। हमें हर शहर, हर गांव, हर घर एंटरप्रेन्योर्स बनाना है। इसी उद्देश्य से बिना गारंटी के मुद्रा लोन की लिमिट को 10 लाख से बढ़ाकर 20 लाख रुपए किया गया है। इससे छोटे कारोबारियों, विशेष रूप से महिलाओं, दलित, पिछड़े, आदिवासी परिवारों में स्वरोजगार को बल मिलेगा। साथियों, हम सब लोग मिलकर भारत को ग्लोबल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाएंगे। देश का एमएसएमई सेक्टर मध्यम वर्ग से जुड़ा हुआ है। एक प्रकार से एमएसएमई सेक्टर की ओनरशिप मध्यम वर्ग ही है और इसी सेक्टर से गरीबों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा रोजगार भी मिलता है। छोटे उद्योगों की बड़ी ताकत, उस दिशा में हमारा अहम कदम है। इस बजट में एमएसएमईज के लिए ईज ऑफ क्रेडिट बढ़ाने वाली नई योजना का ऐलान किया गया है। मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और एक्सपोर्ट्स इकोसिस्टम को हर जिले तक ले जाने के लिए बजट में अहम घोषणा की गई है। ई कॉमर्स, एक्सपोर्ट हब्स और फूड क्वालिटी टेस्टिंग के लिए 100 यूनिट्स, ऐसे कदमों से वन डिस्ट्रिक्ट वन प्रोडक्ट अभियान को गति मिलेगी। साथियों, ये बजट हमारे स्टार्टअप्स के लिए, इनोवेशन इकोसिस्टम के लिए ढेर सारे नए अवसर लेकर आया है। स्पेस इकोनॉमी को बढ़ावा देने के लिए 1000 करोड़ रुपए का फंड हो, एंजल टैक्स हटाने का फैसला हो, ऐसे कई सारे कदम इस बजट में उठाए गए हैं। साथियों, रिकॉर्ड हाई कैपेक्स इकोनॉमी का एक ड्राइविंग फोर्स बनेगा। 12 नए इंडस्ट्रियल नोड्स, देश में नए सैटेलाइट टाउन्स का विकास और 14 बड़े शहरों के लिए ट्रांजिट प्लान, इससे देश में नए इकोनॉमिक हब विकसित होंगे और बहुत बड़ी संख्या में नए रोजगार बनेंगे। साथियों, आज डिफेंस एक्सपोर्ट्स रिकॉर्ड स्तर पर है। इस बजट में डिफेंस सेक्टर को आत्मनिर्भर बनाने के लिए अनेक प्रावधान किए गए हैं। आज पूरी दुनिया में भारत के प्रति आकर्षण बढ़ा है और भारत में टूरिज्म के क्षेत्र में नई संभावनाएं बनी हैं। टूरिज्म क्षेत्र गरीब और मध्यम वर्ग के लिए कई अवसर लेके आता है। इस बजट में टूरिज्म क्षेत्र पर भी विशेष बल दिया गया है। साथियों, एनडीए सरकार ने पिछले 10 साल में ये सुनिश्चित किया है कि गरीब और मध्यम वर्ग को लगातार टैक्स से राहत मिलती रहे। इस बजट में भी इनकम टैक्स में कटौती और स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन में वृद्धि का फैसला लिया गया है। टीडीएस के नियमों को भी सरल किया गया है। इन कदमों से हर टैक्स पेयर को अतिरिक्त बचत होने वाली है। साथियों, देश के विकास के लिए भारत के पूर्वी क्षेत्र का संपूर्ण विकास पूर्वोदय के विजन द्वारा हमारे इस अभियान को नई गति, नई ऊर्जा मिलेगी। हम पूर्वी भारत में कई महत्वपूर्ण इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जैसे हाईवेज, वाटर प्रोजेक्ट्स और पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स का निर्माण कर विकास को नई गति देंगे। साथियों, इस बजट का एक बहुत बड़ा फोकस देश के किसान है। अन्न भंडारण के लिए दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी स्कीम के बाद अब हम वेजिटेबल प्रोडक्शन क्लस्टर्स बनाने जा रहे हैं। इससे एक और छोटे किसानों को फल, सब्जियों, अन्य उपज के लिए नए बाजार मिलेंगे बेहतर दाम मिलेंगे, तो दूसरी ओर हमारे मध्यम वर्ग के लिए फल सब्जियों की उपलब्धता बढ़ेगी और परिवार के लिए पोषण भी सुनिश्चित होगा। कृषि क्षेत्र में भारत का आत्मनिर्भर बनना समय की मांग है। इसलिए दलहन तिलहन की पैदावार बढ़ाने के लिए किसानों को मदद की घोषणा की गई है। साथियों, देश में गरीबी समाप्त हो, गरीब का सशक्तिकरण हो, इस दिशा में भी आज के बजट में प्रमुख घोषणाएं की गई है। गरीबों के लिए 3 करोड़ नए घर बनाना तय हुआ है। जनजातीय उन्नत ग्राम अभियान सैचुरेशन अप्रोच के साथ 5 करोड़ आदिवासी परिवारों को मूलभूत सुविधाओं से जोड़ा जाएगा। इसके अलावा ग्राम सड़क योजना 25,000 नए ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों को ऑल वेदर रोड से जोड़ेगी। इसका लाभ देश के सभी राज्यों के दूर दराज गांवों को मिलेगा। साथियों, आज का बजट नए अवसर, नई ऊर्जा लेकर आया है। ये ढेर सारे नए रोजगार, स्वरोजगार के अवसर लेकर आया है। ये बेटर ग्रोथ और ब्राइट फ्यूचर लेकर आया है। आज का बजट भारत को दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी आर्थिक ताकत बनाने के उस पूरी प्रक्रिया में कैटलिस्ट का काम करेगा। विकसित भारत की एक ठोस नींव रखेगा। सभी देशवासियों को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
All right, that's the message from the Prime Minister after his first budget in the 3rd consecutive term. I'm joined by some of our experts, industry experts joining us. Ravi Saxena, MD and CEO, Wonder Chef is with us. Amit Jaipuria, entrepreneur, founder and CEO, Postcard Travel Club has been with us. And Amit, I do thank you for your patience. You were speaking earlier about your big headline from today's budget. Please continue before I go across to Ravi as well.
Thank you. So I think it's interesting that the government started to now focus on the local narratives in terms of development of Nalanda as a tourist center. I think it's great to sort of see old narratives like the historic university now coming into spotlight. His focus on Odisha as well in terms of temples and monuments. I think it's a great opportunity for us to sort of really highlight the people who are doing a lot of sustainable tourism in that area. Because that's how the money trickles down to the to the local villages and the upliftment of the local communities, etc. So it's going to be nice. It's nice that the focus is now on the local narratives and the rich history, culture, diversity that we have to offer. I think it's a great opportunity for tourism to really serve as a force for good in India.
Yes, absolutely. The potential that tourism has is absolutely limitless. I'll come back to you on that. Ravi Saxena, I want to come to you as well. A lot of focus today, as far we possibly saw this coming, a lot of focus on skilling, on job creation, on employment, on youth per se. That plus your takeaway, your big takeaway from the budget announcement.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Look, first of all, I would say the budget is consistent. I mean, this is probably the 10th or 11th budget we are seeing from this government, 7th of
Nirmala Sitharaman, yes.
And it's consistent. I mean, there are no SOPs given, which is a good thing. There are some favors made to the alliance partners, which was expected, not very welcome though. The opposition is making due remarks on that. It's highlighting that, and that is their job. And I think it's right also somewhere. I would say the budget is consistent, it's developmental. So when we make the plan for a company, there are years when we make a visionary plan and there are years when we make an execution plan. According to me, this is an execution budget. There is no big vision. There are some obvious things which are being done, like employment generation. I mean, it's a no-brainer. In the country which is the largest population on earth, which is producing the largest number of children on earth, which is producing the largest number of college graduates or second largest on earth. I mean, employment generation is a no-brainer. It is needed, and I think the budget does tick the right boxes when it comes to employment generation. A lot of focus on MSMEs, on skilling, on transformation of more than 1,000 ITI institutes, loans to students for doing startups,
Yes.
a lot of support on the wage and EPFO for new employees. I think all these things add up to something. I would, however, like to see something more visionary. I mean, there is a 1,000 crore venture capital fund. What is 1,000 crores? It's nothing. In a country like India, it's good enough to probably support maybe 50, 60 small companies as an angel investor. I mean, I think the government has to play a much bigger role in kicking off the startup system.
All right. Sanjay Kathuria, who's an entrepreneur himself, Prashant Tripathi, co-chair FICCI Committee on Insurance and Managing Director and CEO Max Life Insurance Company Limited, also joining us. On insurance, Prashant, the only thing that I could really see was that one of the two tax SOPs in the new tax regime are related to insurance. What impact do you see of that? Plus, overall, there were a lot of expectations as far as direct taxes are concerned, them not coming forward. Maybe we saw that as a consistency from this government or this dispensation. Your thoughts on all of that?
I think let me first address from an industry perspective, and like every other industry, I think the overall prudence around predictability, around fiscal deficit, hopefully leading to stability in interest rates, they are definitely great steps because they go a long way in terms of creating stability in demand as well as outcomes for life insurance industry. So I personally think that it is a very good step. In addition, I think there are minor changes that have been made towards the tax rates or tax slabs, leading to more money in the hands of, or at least disposable income in the hands of the consumers, and some part of that will definitely get directed towards savings. And because life insurance industry plays in a big way in the savings area, I think there'll be benefits to life insurance industry. The other thing that I did notice was a lot of focus on retirement. And while there have been dispensation given with respect to NPS, and the contribution has been increased from 10% to 14% up to 7.5 lakhs. I think it is going to create a lot of awareness in the overall ecosystem towards retirement. Especially if you notice, there is a NPS Vatsalya which has been created, which means even before the age of 18, it could go in that direction. So I think the rub-off will definitely come to life insurance industry, which is a big player in the retirement space. So overall, I think not a heavy plus or minus for life insurance industry, but I think the overall stability as well as awareness will definitely help us.
So the particular, one of the two changes that help in tax liability per year, one is, of course, the standard deduction for salaried employees in the new tax regime has been increased by 25,000. The other is deduction on family pension for pensioners is proposed to be enhanced from 15 to 25,000, and that will provide relief to about 4 crore salaried individual and pensioners. All right, I also want to bring in Sanjay Kathuria. Sanjay, you're an entrepreneur. Do you want to comment first and foremost on the angel tax being abolished completely?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, angel tax, I think one thing which we could see in this budget was government is trying to deregulate, in the sense it's trying to make things simpler for everyone. Because earlier, you have these regimes, TDS, changes which the government has also made. Angel tax is one of them. So I think slowly I'm seeing this trend that government is trying to simplify things from the compliance standpoint. It helps both the parties. It helps us also as a consumer, and government also, as their administration cost sometimes far exceeds the benefits they get out of all these archaic laws. So I think that is one very welcome move. However, I think overall this budget has not addressed great things for the stock market. Last time, rather, I was just complaining that last time FM ma'am had at least congratulated all of us for being for contributing to the country. This time she didn't even congratulate all of us. And I think apart from that, she has put a little more burden on people who are in stock market. And I think they have, she has increased this long-term capital gains tax by 25%. So it's not 10 to 12.5, it's not 2.5%. If you see the proportion of tax, it increases by 25%. So if 1 year back I was paying 1 lakh rupee tax, now I'll be paying 1,25,000 rupee tax. So it's a 25% hike in my outgo. And the fear is that slowly it may reach to 15% levels, because that's been the history. Every time they just put a little bit of, they'll just add and add and add and then make us shock proof. So I think that is a very worrisome factor, because we wanted more participation in the stock markets. And everybody's speaking SIP sahi hai, mutual fund sahi hai, and suddenly you come and give a big jolt to people who have, planned their entire life based on investments in mutual funds, including myself. I think that was a very wrong move, and the markets have sharply reacted to that, though they have corrected a bit, but I think it's a very sharp reaction from the markets. So I think overall, there is nothing to enjoy in this budget. The FM has mentioned two-thirds of the employees have now shifted to the new regime. So slowly, I think the budget will be irrelevant for many people, because they would know that they are in the new regime. So they just need to watch the budget for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and that's about it. Because now nobody would be talking about ATC limit enhancements, PPF, all those kind of things, NPS. So I think that is another thing which the government seems to move towards the new tax regime. So I think these are some fundamental changes, but overall, I think it's a budget which was the first year budget. So the government has no incentives to incentivize us, because the elections is now 5 years away. So maybe after three budgets, we may get something from them. But
by
presently,
us,
we don't
you
have anything.
mean those invested in the stock market per se, right?
Absolutely. Those who invested in the stock markets, almost 7 to 8 crore unique demat accounts, 20,000 crore plus of equity SIP every month. I think that's a big jolt for all of us, because the kind of tax increase they have done is very significant.
I've got Dipanshu Majenda, founder and CEO Zapfresh, with me as well in the studios. Thank you, Dipanshu, for joining us. Do you want to comment a little bit about the entire ecosystem that this government has been trying to create for startups, for innovation, angel tax being completely reversed, plus a lot else that the government keeps wanting the private sector and entrepreneurs to do? What more did you see in this budget for that?
I think very tiny moves, but definitely in the right direction. Of course, we've realized that angel tax, is definitely a no-no. And then also from a, FDI point of view, there are certain relaxations which are given. So that is actually a big plus in my view. That will really boost the ecosystem and the motivation for the investors who want to enter into India. Specifically, if you look at Tesla and some of the other international organizations who were not really happy with the regulations. I think there is some cushion there. Overall, I think this is more, support to the agri and the job creation side of it, which is great, for the economy. So they've focused on a larger, scheme of things, rather than just looking at
particular
startups
sectors,
specifically, or some public market, enhancements, etc. So I personally think that they are on the right track. My view is that they're at least identifying certain areas where there would be, some movement which will impact in the long term. So I see this budget as a long term, step.
Could we also say that it's also a continuation of what they've been doing? Because, they have done a lot for the startup ecosystem. Now, every budget cannot just be about that. It's about continuation.
Absolutely.
As well.
So in our case, for example, we are in the agri sector, since we deal with poultry and meat. There is, a lot of movement there. They are trying to improve various policies in that side of the business. I think that's perfectly, good for the ecosystem. And let's not forget, it is 70% of our GDP. So they're focusing on the right things for their vote bank for the next election for sure. And startups is very small, and that's what I think they've done. Do little things for little impact sectors. And
but
then
focus
do larger,
is, of course, on the larger youth issue as well, as I was saying.
Which I think is okay.
Is
okay
understandable.
Budget. It's okay. I would say it's okay. Not that great. Maybe, of course, there is no limit to getting happy on whatever that can be from an income point of view, income tax point of view.
I do thank our guests for being with us. Just stay with me for a little bit because I also want to go across to N.K. Singh, former Chairman, Finance Commission of India, joining us. Mr. Singh, thanks a lot for your first reactions. The big focus is, of course, job creation, employment, and skilling. In that, is there some sort of an acceptance that this is the biggest challenge that the Indian economy has been facing?
Well, certainly it's a very important challenge, which you point out. But I would look at the entire budget from a couple of other points of view. First and foremost, I look at it that this is a very credible attempt to combine high rates of economic growth with continuation of overall macroeconomic stability.
Okay.
You know that not many countries in the world have achieved this. We are in the region of 7.7% plus rate of growth. The economic survey places it between 6.5 to 7, with the upside more likely, along with a very credible roadmap on reducing a fiscal deficit and of overall debt to GDP, which has a multiplier circled in terms of continuation of a favorable credit rating, and also a possible upgrade, and from the viewpoint of assuring investors on India's long-term macroeconomic stability with high rates of economic growth. So that's the first point I want to make.
Okay.
The second point I want to make is that it's a very credible attempt on deeper rationalization of the entire taxation framework in multiple ways. First of all, there's a commitment that on the indirect taxes, on GST, there will be further work on rationalization of the tax rates and improving the culture on compliance, which has already shown some very positive signs. Along with this, on the customs duty, the issues of inverted duty structure have been very credibly addressed in this budget, which was one of the things which was expected. On the direct tax side, there is now a very definite commitment that the new tax framework, a group is working on it. We had one earlier, but that has become a bit obsolete in terms of the changes subsequently, and in terms of the overall change in both the geopolitics of it and India's own growth story, that there will be a new blueprint for a direct tax core in the next 6 months or so, which hopefully will be then reflected in the next big budget of the finance minister.
Okay.
Along with this, the tax rates have been further recalibrated, the tax break has been increased, and at every part on the slab, there has been a benefit to the average taxpayer, which should have multiplier effects on the consumption cycle, and modest rates of taxation really lead to long-term certainty in terms of investment decisions. Finally, I think that there are on the tax side, the cut in the corporate tax rate aligns really our taxation structure with global norms, and India will enable India to become a competitive investment destination. And hopefully, in terms of direct foreign investment, this is going to have some gainful multiplier effects. The fourth important thing, and I'll end with fourth and the fifth, fourth important thing which I want to focus on is that it is undoubtedly true that the issue of gainful employment, particularly to India's youth, is a very big challenge for us. We have now the world's largest demography. We are 1.4 billion people. The age dependency ratio is falling rapidly, where we can have a demographic advantage. The new schemes which have been introduced, for internship, apprenticeship, giving a stake to employers as well as to government. But little things like the first responsibility for the first payment will be taken by the government, will, I think, have virtuous circles for gainful job creation. Because do not forget that India is unique in terms of facing a challenge, which is a global challenge, of how to adopt rapidly the changing technology. We are inevitably moving towards an era of artificial intelligence, and that is the international example show can be not job creating but job displacing. So taking credible steps that while remaining on the technology curve and remaining on the frontiers of the technology curve, we continue to create gainful employment opportunities. Some of the steps which have been outlined are really far-reaching. Couple this with the far-reaching changes in agriculture, in terms of agriculture practices, becoming completely self-sufficient in terms of lentils, proteins, crop diversification, modalities for improving farmer incomes, which will improve the consumption power of the farmers. Along with this, therefore, if you combine the gainful opportunities for job, not only in the manufacturing, so skilling, apprenticeship, but along with the opportunities being created in both the services and most importantly, the agriculture sector. This will give major thrust to employment. Finally, I think that India is one of the biggest challenges is that how to remain compliant, and how to remain credible to an initiative which the Prime Minister had taken. One of the persons who were really the founding pillar of the Global Solar Alliance and a resilient infrastructure, climate resilient infrastructure, continuing our focus on ensuring that on the climate and the orderly transition to an era of renewable energy, moving away from fossil fuel, this budget outlines some very far-reaching decisions. So add up all this, I would say this budget is a very, very decisive step towards the realization of our quest of making India a developed economy by 2047.
Yes, the targets have been very clearly set by the Narendra Modi-led government over the last 10 years. Plus, of course, he talks about a vision till 2047. But Mr. Singh, I do want to ask you this, and because these questions will come up, they're already coming up. So it will be interesting to have your perspective on this because you're the expert here. The criticism has been that a lot of schemes have been announced over the last 10 years. The impact hasn't kicked in. Would you agree with that? And if that is the case, then why do you think that is still happening?
Let me put it this way to you. I do not agree that the impact is not visible. How many countries have achieved, if I may ask you, the credible record of sustaining a very high rate of economic growth with macroeconomic stability? And this is really, internationally, if you look at it, all international entities, the International Monetary Fund, the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, are crediting India as the global bright spot of growth. How many countries have wiped out abject poverty in such a significant way, both rural and urban abject poverty, by a staggering number of people who have been pulled out of abject poverty and are now above the poverty line. No doubt the poverty line needs to be redefined, but that's another matter. But the fact remains that I think that when people say that a lot of schemes have been announced, but very little has been translated, yes, certainly quality of implementation is a constant challenge. But the ability of this government to change the quality of expenditure, which means the quality of the schemes, moving more and more to capital expenditure instead of revenue expenditure, is a very important factor which will make India infrastructure, cost efficiency and dependability and reliability of its economy a very important bright point, even the medium term and foreseeable future.
Okay.
And enhance its export capability alongside.
So just to expand on the question I'm asking, you don't agree with the kind of lived reality that is being talked about by, those that may be in opposition or otherwise, that, a lot of these things sound very nice, but there is rural distress. We've been talking about the private sector not kicking in their investment cycle for many, many years, pre-COVID, mind you. And then we've been talking about the skill gap that India has been struggling to fulfill. So would you agree that these do continue to be the pain points? And this is where the government has been putting a lot of its thrust. But its critics say the results are not forthcoming.
So, it is always aspirational to say that the results and outcomes could have been somewhat significantly better with improved quality. But I think that in this budget and in some of the comments which I have made, I have sought to address the issue that we have made very decisive forward-looking changes, and they need to be factored without in any way minimizing that improving the quality of implementation and improving employment opportunities and seeking to harmonize the benefits of growth with the benefits of employment creation, with the adoption of the cutting edge of technology, while gainful employment consistent with our demographic profile is an ongoing challenge. And this budget is commendable because it seeks to address some of those challenges in a credible way.
I do thank you for your time. N.K. Singh, former Chairman, Finance Commission, India. A big thanks for joining us here on CNN News 18. On that note, we're slipping into a very short break, but on the other side, we'll get you more experts from India Inc. and more. Plus, what do the changes, slight tweaking in the tax regime mean for you? All of that coming up.
Brought to you by
States will be incentivized for implementation of the business reforms, action plans, and digitalization. Data and statistics for improving data governance, collection, processing statistics, different sectoral databases, including those established under the Digital India mission, will be utilized with active use of technology tools. New pension scheme. The committee to review the NPS has made considerable progress in its work. I'm happy that the staff side of the National Council of the Joint Consultative Machinery for Central Government Employees has taken a constructive approach. A solution will be evolved which addresses the relevant issues while maintaining fiscal prudence to protect the common citizens. Budget estimates for 24-25. For the year 24-25, total receipts other than borrowings and the total expenditure are estimated at 32.07 lakh crore rupees and 48.21 lakh crore rupees respectively. The net tax receipts are estimated at 25.83 lakh crore rupees. The fiscal deficit is estimated at 4.9% of the GDP. The gross and the net market borrowings through dated securities during 24-25 are estimated at 14.01 lakh crore rupees and 11.63 lakh crore rupees respectively. Both will be less than that in 23-24. The fiscal consolidation path announced by me in 2021 has served our economy very well, and we aim to reach the deficit below 4.5% next year. The government is committed to staying the course. From 2026-27 onwards, our endeavor will be to keep the fiscal deficit each year such that the central government's debt will be on a declining path as percentage of GDP. Land-related reforms and actions, both in the rural and urban areas, will cover land administration, will cover 1. Land administration, planning and management, and 2. Urban planning usage and building bylaws. These will be incentivized for completion within the next 3 years through appropriate fiscal support. Rural land-related actions. Rural land-related actions will include 1. Assignment of unique land parcel identification number, UL PIN, or Bhu Aadhar for all lands. 2. Digitization of cadastral maps. 3. Subdivisions, survey of map subdivisions as per current ownership. 4. Establishment of land registry. And 5. Linking to the farmers registry. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Urban land related actions. Land records in urban areas will be digitized with GIS mapping. An IT-based system for property record administration, updating, and tax administration will be established.
Thanks a lot for staying with us. We're getting some political updates now coming in. Rahul Gandhi, leader of opposition, has already reacted to the budget and he has called it a Kursi Bachao budget. Rahul says that this is just copy and paste of Congress manifesto and previous budgets. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh is also joining us with more on this. Pallavi, so criticism coming in from the leader of opposition already.
Yes, so there are 2 points on which an attack is coming in. So when you talk about copy-paste, essentially the Congress is taking credit for this entire internship or apprenticeship package which Nirmala Sitharaman announced. They're saying that fairly Naukri Pakki was a scheme or under the Nyaya Patra of the Congress manifesto which has been listed by the BJP, but at least the BJP is acknowledging that there's a job problem. The second thing is a large number of benefits which have been given to Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. That's the verdict coming in from most opposition parties, that this is a Kursi Bachao or an attempt by the BJP to save the government, which is why you have come under pressure from both the chief ministers and given the maximum to them. States like, for example, West Bengal are already complaining, like Punjab are complaining, why is it that we've got nothing? Maharashtra, Punjab, Bengal, all of them are complaining that we have been neglected. The majority of the CP has gone in the favor of both Andhra as well as Bihar.
All right, Pallavi, I do thank you for joining us. Of course, there will be more political reactions coming in. The Congress already calling it a copy-paste job of at least some of their schemes that they announced in their manifesto and resonated with the youth, they would argue, in some measure. I've got our guest with me from Zapfresh, Dipanshu, still with us. So, Dipanshu, when we talk about this entire youth challenge, according to you, where is the bottleneck in that youth challenge?
I think education, the skill gap is an absolute, thing to blame, for it could be education policy, it could be with the schools, it could, be at a higher education level, but definitely there is a massive gap. And, the sad part is it's not even moving, the gap has been there for decades. Closing. Yeah, it has been there for decades. But there is no finishing school which would make you ready for the jobs, and we've seen a lot of...
So all of the skilling that the government has been focusing on?
It's not really helping. I don't see there is a, even a tiny improvement in that side of it. However, corporate sector has been looking at, improving it, whether you look at, all the bigger companies like Infosys, TCS, they're all struggling to, to hire the right talent. And I am really scared, on what is ahead us. And
so we have this huge demographic dividend, but nowhere to go with it, because you're saying the jobs are there. It's just that there is a skill gap. But there is a certain level of jobs which is, of course, your IT companies and your AI and all of that. I understand that gap can be met because the private sector there also has a greater wherewithal to skill their own employees.
Correct.
But you deal a lot with the agricultural sector or the new agricultural sector, which is meat and poultry. There, do you see any restrictions or bottlenecks for you?
So, see, even here, we haven't seen any government intervention. At a grassroots level, we've seen certain NGOs, certain impact companies, social, organizations which are working to improve the skill. But from a government level, we haven't seen anything, frankly, which is what would have really moved the needle. If you look at even manufacturing as a sector, where we want to, compete with China, for example, what are we doing, for us from a skill gap perspective there? The blue collar, workforce, really needs a jolt, in my view, which will impact, the overall, various manufacturing. And I'm not only talking about food. You look at anything in manufacturing, right from electronics to
maybe the
clothing
hope is
to
that some of
garments.
the big companies will come and that process of skilling will automatically take care of itself.
No, it's not going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen, because this is not IT where you are getting in dollars. You are localized business. A localized business needs support.
Okay.
So we see MSME supporting with your debt and different schemes. There is a reason. But if government can ensure that money going to skill improvement, I think that will be a right move.
All right. I do thank you, Dipanshu, for joining us. I want to quickly go across to our other guest joining us, Alok Agarwal, partner, Deloitte India. This is, of course, the focus on direct taxes. Not much left as far as the union budget is concerned for people who are looking at taxes or what becomes, cheaper or costlier. But direct taxes still garner a lot of attention. Alok, begin by just encapsulating for me the sentiment that has come back to you after the announcement today. What is the general feeling in the taxpayer's mind?
So I think the general feeling is positive, because there were expectations for some relief, especially under the new tax regime for the lower income salaried taxpayers. For example, there was an expectation of increase in standard deduction, while the desire was for a higher increase. The increase is still not as high as expected of 50,000. The increase is only of 25,000. But there's a standard deduction which has got increased, and of course some slabs have got widened.
Yes.
Right. And therefore, there is some benefit, as the FM mentioned, of about 17,500 on both these accounts. So there is some relief there. And of course, the other benefit under the new tax regime is the ability now to have NPS as part of your salary structure, where the employer contributions up to 14% can be considered under the beneficial provisions that are there under the old regime. That is now there under the new regime. Under the new regime, it is 14% as compared to 10%. So that's also giving an impetus to the NPS in that sense.
So overall, do you feel the government has done enough as it could do? There's, of course, this focus on the new tax regime. I think we know the trajectory that the government is taking with that. It is incentivizing people every year to shift from the old to the new. Just for the benefit of our viewers watching us, could you tell us why you think the government is doing this and why the old regime is obsolete in its mind?
So the thinking of the government is that there is a high cost of administration in terms of scrutinizing the claims for deductions and exemptions under the old regime. So from an administration perspective, it is not as efficient as the new regime. The second is also there is a feeling that there is some tax avoidance under the old regime. For example, more recently there were actions taken by the authorities in respect of claims for house rental allowance exemption. So those are the reasons why the government wants to push taxpayers to the new regime, so that the administration becomes easier and the potential tax avoidance also comes down. That is the thinking of the government. And as expected, there is not much under the old regime.
Okay. So by and large, you're saying the government has made those 2/3 of the taxpayers now that the government said have already adopted a new tax regime happier by doing what it could do. Some of the expectations were more than what has come, but clearly the trajectory is very much visible. I do thank you, Alok Agarwal, for joining us. A big thanks to all of our guests who joined us. Stay with us. Our exclusive coverage on the union budget continues after a very short break.
Also facilitate improving the financial position of urban local bodies. Labor-related reforms, services to labor. Our government will facilitate the provision of a wide array of services to labor including those for employment and skilling. A comprehensive integration of e-Shram portal with other portals will facilitate such one-stop solution. Open architecture databases for the rapidly changing labor market, skill requirements, and available job roles, and a mechanism to connect job aspirants with potential employers and skill providers will be covered in these services. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan portal will be revamped to enhance ease of compliance for industry and trade. Capital and entrepreneurship related reforms, financial sector vision and strategy. For meeting financing needs of the economy, our government will bring out a financial sector vision and strategy document to prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity, and skills. This will set the agenda for the next 5 years and guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions, and market participants. Taxonomy for climate finance. We will develop taxonomy for climate finance for enhancing the availability of capital for climate adaptation and mitigation. This will support achievement of the country's climate commitments and green transition. Variable capital company structure. We will seek the required legislative approval for providing an efficient and flexible mode for financing leasing of aircrafts and ships and pooled funds of private equity through a variable company structure. Foreign direct investments. The rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments will be simplified to 1. Facilitate foreign direct investments, 2. Nudge prioritization, and 3. Promote currency for overseas investment. NPS Vatsalya. NPS Vatsalya, a plan for contribution by parents and guardians for minors, will be started. On attaining the age of majority, the plan can be converted seamlessly into a normal NPS account. Use of technology. We have successfully used technology for improving productivity and bridging inequality in our economy during the past 10 years. Public investment in digital infrastructure and innovations by the private sector have helped in improving access of all citizens, particularly the common people, to market resources, education, health and services. We will step up adoption of technology towards digitalization of the economy. Ease of doing business. For enhancing ease of doing business, we are already working on the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0. Further, states will be incentivized for implementation of the business reforms, action plans, and digitalization. Data and statistics. For improving data governance, collection, processing statistics, different sectoral databases, including those as
CNN News 18 and DBS Budget Day Studio.
Very good afternoon. You're watching CNN News 18 with me, Akanksha Swaroop. Now, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented her 7th consecutive union budget today. The government has hiked the standard deduction to 75,000 rupees from the current 50,000 rupees under the new tax regime. salaried employees will now stand to save 17,500 rupees in income tax. Now, the FM has also announced employment-linked incentives based on enrollment into EPFO. It will focus on the first-time employee and offer 1 month wage for all employees in the formal sector. Angel tax has also been abolished for all classes of investors. Custom duty on gold and even silver has been reduced to 6%. Additionally, the finance minister further has informed that the customs duty slash on platinum is going to be at 6.4%. A host of developmental projects for Bihar, even Andhra Pradesh, have been announced, and Prime Minister Modi has already hailed the budget, saying that it has strengthened every section of the Indian society and that crores of jobs will be generated which will empower the youth. Let's also listen in to what the FM had to say.
Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Our government has made concerted efforts to fulfill the commitments in Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act. Recognizing the state's need for the capital, recognizing the state's need for a capital, we will facilitate special financial support through multilateral development agencies. In the current financial year, 15,000 crore rupees will be arranged with additional amounts in future years. Our government is fully committed to financing and early completion of the Polavaram Irrigation Project, which is the lifeline. Under the Act, Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, for promoting industrial development, funds will be provided for essential infrastructure such as water, power, railways and roads. In Kopparthi node on the Visakhapatnam-Chennai Industrial Corridor and Varavakal node on the Hyderabad-Bengaluru Industrial Corridor. An additional allocation will be provided this year towards capital investment for economic growth. Grants for backward regions of Rayalaseema, Prakasham, North Coastal Andhra, as stated in the Act, will be provided. Human resource development, infrastructure, and generation of economic opportunities to make the region an engine to attain Vikasit Bharat. On the Amritsar-Kolkata Industrial Corridor, we will support development of an industrial node at Gaya. This corridor will catalyze industrial development of the eastern region. The industrial node at Gaya will also be a good model for developing our ancient centers of cultural importance into future centers of modern economy. This model shall showcase Vikas B, Virasat B in a growth trajectory. We will also support development of road connectivity projects, namely 1. Patna-Purnia Expressway, 2. Buxar-Bhagalpur Expressway, 3. Bodh Gaya, Rajgir, Vaishali and Darbhanga spurs, and 4. Additional 2-lane bridge over River Ganga at Buxar at a total cost of 26,000 crore rupees. Power projects, including setting up of a new 2,400 megawatt power plant at Pir Painti, will be taken up at a cost of 21,400 crore rupees. New airports, medical colleges, and sports infrastructure in Bihar will be constructed. additional allocation to support capital investments will be provided. The requests of Bihar government for external assistance from multilateral development banks will be expedited.
All right, so you heard what the FM had to say. A host of announcements revolving around infrastructural development for Bihar. Let's bring you the key takeaways of those announcements. Gaya is going to be an industrial node on the Amritsar-Kolkata corridor. 26,000 crores, in fact, to be allocated for highways only in Bihar. Requests of Bihar government from multilateral banks will now be expedited further. They will also be setting up new airports, medical colleges, sports infrastructure in Bihar will in fact receive a push worth 11,500 crore rupees. Now for flood mitigation, which remember stands to be a massive problem in the state, there is going to be a scheme in Bihar development of Vishnupad and Mahabodhi corridors, development of Nalanda and revival of the university, preservation of hot springs in Rajgir. All of this will now be featuring as part of the new announcements that have been made today in the grand unveiling of the budget 2024 by Nirmala Sitharaman. Let's also, in fact, bring you what has been the focus on Andhra Pradesh. Remember, the big talking point today of FM has been the focus on the ally states, whether it is Bihar or even Andhra Pradesh. As far as Andhra Pradesh is concerned, efforts to fulfill Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act, which will now require the promise has already been made, but 15,000 crore rupees that will be arranged for Andhra's capital grants for backward regions of Andhra Pradesh as well. Grants will now be provided as per Andhra Pradesh's Reorganization Act. The additional funds will in fact be diverted to the Polavaram project package for Vizag-Chennai Industrial Corridor. Also expect a massive portion of the funds. On that note, in fact, we have some breaking inputs coming in. This is in fact a reaction coming in from the NDA allies of the Bharatiya Janata Party. TDP and the JDU have reacted. They are now hailing the union budget. Chandrababu Naidu has in fact said that this support from the centre will go a long way towards rebuilding Andhra Pradesh. Remember, this is talking about Vishwas Se Virasat Tak, one of the key themes of the FM today as she announced that budget. TDP and JDU both hailing the finance minister's budget. Let's also listen into the reactions that have come in.
Ramon, you are wearing the widest smile on the government budget announcement. Are you relieved as a party, as a
It's not just relief, it is the responsibility that we have being in the NDA government to deliver on the assurances and deliver on the expectations that the people of Andhra Pradesh today have. And I feel with the budget today we have done that. The main interest of the people of Andhra Pradesh is to rebuild the state, especially in terms of building a capital. And 15,000 crores have been assigned for building of the capital, and also Polavaram project, which is the lifeline of project of the state. It's assured irrigation water, assured drinking water and power generation. It's one of the biggest projects in the country. That project has got mentioned in the budget, and they have said that they are taking a responsibility in completing the project. And also the backward districts in the state, they have been given special focus. And Orvakal node, another node has been picked up in Andhra Pradesh, which is also going to create a lot of economic activity, a lot of employment generation and a lot of revenue generation for the state also. So I would like to thank the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, and also the central government for putting special focus on Andhra, which is very much needed. I'm not saying this as a ally within the NDA, but if you look at Andhra as a state in this country, it has been totally devastated by Jagan Mohan Reddy in the last 5 years because of his corruption, because of his unthoughtful decisions, because of his mafia structure of running a government. The Andhra has been totally destroyed, and now for rebuilding it, we are getting the proper support which is due for the state of Andhra Pradesh.
Thank you, sir. The union budget has presented a lot of sops for Bihar. Joining me, JDU's national spokesperson KC Tyagi. So first reaction.
नहीं, रिएक्शन जो टीएमसी का आया है बजट को लेकर के, उसी से साबित होता है कि
The union budget has presented a lot of sops for Bihar. Joining me, JDU's national spokesperson KC Tyagi. So first reaction.
नहीं, रिएक्शन जो टीएमसी का आया है बजट को लेकर के, उसी से साबित होता है कि बिहार बजट है। बिहार के विकास के लिए, उन्नत बिहार बनाने के लिए जो केंद्रीय बजट में राहतें दी गई हैं उससे हम गदगद हैं और वित्त मंत्री को भी, प्रधानमंत्री को भी और नीतीश कुमार जी के प्रयासों को भी हम धन्यवाद करना चाहते हैं।
पंकज चौधरी, एमओएस फाइनेंस ने कि बिहार को स्पेशल स्टेटस का दर्जा नहीं दिया जा सकता, तो आरजेडी की तरफ से कहा गया था नीतीश कुमार इस्तीफा दे। क्या अब ये स्पेशल स्टेटस का मामला ठंडा हो गया है? आप संतुष्ट हैं? क्या अब स्पेशल स्टेटस पे फोकस नहीं रहेगा?
स्पेशल स्टेटस प्रदान करने की दिशा में बड़ा कदम है। जो फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस वहाँ के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए, एयरपोर्ट के लिए, नए पुलों के लिए, नई सड़कों के लिए, नए मेडिकल कॉलेज के लिए जो ग्रांट दी गई है वो उसी की दिशा में एक बड़ा कदम है। लाखों करोड़ रुपए की आर्थिक मदद बिहार को देकर के ये बिहारी बजट हो गया है।
Let's quickly go across to Pallavi Ghosh, who's also joining us live on the broadcast. Pallavi, going by what KC Tyagi is saying, ये special status के लिए उस दिशा में एक सही कदम है. When you in fact listen to what KC Tyagi is saying, is this now also a pacifist move by the government when it comes to the kind of grants that have been provided to Andhra and Bihar?
See, finance ministry sources have been consistently telling us, and similarly has the government been saying and made it very clear, and Mr. Pankaj Chaudhary also made it clear in the Lok Sabha yesterday, that there is no question of giving a special category status to Andhra Pradesh or to Bihar as well, that there are economic compulsions as well. And frankly speaking, this entire barbs which are going on against both Andhra and Bihar is something which is not being accepted either by the allies or by the BJP. But I think it was a given, you know, and I mean the Congress knows what running of a coalition government means. They have suffered it twice over. They often had to do a U-turn. Dr. Manmohan Singh had to rethink many of the policy decisions which he firmly felt was actually at the end of the day good for the economy of the country, but he had to do a U-turn barring the Indo-US nuclear deal. So the BJP may be considered to be new under Prime Minister Narendra Modi to these kind of coalition compulsions, but it's also tried to send out and in fact I would say it has sent out a message that yes, we want to take our allies along, but we are also going to draw a line. We did not give them a special category status. So notwithstanding the barbs coming in from Rahul Gandhi and many of the India front parties, as far as the government goes, the allies are completely backing the BJP. They seem to be satisfied at this point of time, and this is what really coalition government is all about. You give some, you take some, and that's the point which the BJP is making to the Congress.
It's very interesting that you talk about how the coalition dynamics work out, but when you look at what FM had to say in her speech today, she in fact delivered a very key message. In fact, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Pallavi. We'll have to quickly cut across to the press conference being presided over by the FM. Let's listen to what Ms. Nirmala Sitaraman.
Economic Affairs, Shri Ajay Seth. Secretary DIPAM, Shri Tarun Kant Pandey ji. Secretary Financial Services, Tuhin Kant Pandey ji. Secretary Financial Services, Dr. Vivek Joshi. Secretary Revenue, Shri Sanjay Malhotra, and Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Dr. V. Anant Nageshwaran, to this press conference. Friends, I request you to follow this following point of order. It would be good if you each of one ask one question each. That will facilitate others to ask questions. And we will try to take most of the questions in this press conference. Ma'am will directly answer your question without any preliminary statement. Over to ma'am. Over to question. Anybody? All question 71, please.
मैम तरुण फ्रॉम जी बिजनेस. मैम आपने आज के बजट में शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन और लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन दोनों के रेट्स को बढ़ाया है और रियल एस्टेट में आपने इंडेक्सेशन के बेनिफिट को ख़त्म किया है. तो मैम क्या हम माने कि जो इक्विटी है अब आप उसको बाकी एसेट्स क्लास के बराबर लाना चाह रहे हैं, इस वजह से आपने लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन के टैक्स रेट को 10% से 12.5% किया.
First of all, thank you very much for coming here. After having heard the budget, I chose not to make an opening statement because you've heard me almost for 1.5 hours, and I'm sure you have, you're eager to know what is in the budget and also seek clarification. For your, just for a matter of drawing your attention, we've put up a single slide which has actually, which has used the word employment as an acronym to capture that is everything in the budget. So each letter actually highlights the important points of the budget, and we can elaborate more on that a bit later. But employment captures everything to do with this budget, and I would like you to, for a moment, spend a time on it. And deriving from that, everything which has been said in the budget falls in place. But with that said, yes, your question is on the point there is we wanted to simplify the approach to taxation, also for the capital gains. One. Second, if anything, the average taxation actually has come down when we say it is 12.5%. Because we've worked out for each of the different asset classes, each varied with the indexation. I'll ask secretaries to elaborate on it. But the point that we brought it down from below the average to 12.5, which is the lowest if you can look at the last several years, encourages investment in the markets. With that said, I'll ask Somanathan or who is going to elaborate, Sanjay, on the specifics.
So you had, there were I think 2 or more parts to your question. One was on real estate and gold and other assets. So earlier the rate was 20% with indexation. It has now been reduced to 12.5% without indexation. If you assume that the rate of return on real estate is typically above 10% per annum, and if you take inflation at about 4% per annum, the real rate of return was earlier, let's say, somewhere between 6 and 16% per annum in real estate. If it was 16%, 20% of 16% was being taxed. The effective rate was 16%. It has gone down to 12.5%. If the rate of return was 10% per annum nominal, it has also remained approximately the same at 12.5%. So actually there is either a reduction or no change in respect of the effective rate of tax on property and gold. Now, as regards the equity, yes, it has gone up from 10 to 12.5, but you will also find that unlisted equity has gone down from 20 with indexation to 12.5 without indexation. Basically, we have a very, very simple, easy regime. All listed, all unlisted are at 12.5% long term. And all are at 20%, I mean, equities are at 20% and everything else is at applicable rate for short term. So yes, short term has gone up, and yes, long term has been rationalized. It has not necessarily gone up. And Sanjay, would you like to add anything?
One point I would like to add over here is that we also need to keep in mind as to the kind of people who are actually paying these taxes, the capital gains on the securities, the listed securities especially. And so over there, when we did this analysis for the year 22-23, we found that about 88% of the tax is actually coming from people who have an income of more than 15 lakh. 61% of that income is actually coming from people who have an income of more than 1 crore.
That is income on capital gains on this.
And we are all aware that otherwise, you know, the standard rate is, you know, about 30%. And for some it can go up to 39%. So this marginal, very small marginal increase is actually impacting only those, primarily those who have an income of more than 15 lakh rupees per year.
Okay, number 3.
On capital gains.
Ma'am, Timsi Jaipuria from CNBC TV 18. You announced a very lucrative new tax regime with changes in tax slabs. A lot of new changes are there in the income tax side, on the revenue side. And in the speech, you mentioned that revenue foregone will be around 29,000 crore rupees, whereas government will now try to mobilize around 30,000 crore rupees. What will be these revenue mobilization measures, and from where do you think this foregone revenue will be recovered? If you can highlight, where are you foregoing the revenue, and where are you going to recoup this revenue from?
First of all, it is not just because we've mentioned it in this budget, but the attempt to widen the tax net is something which we've been repeatedly saying, that India's tax net will have to be widened, whether it is in the direct taxation or indirect. Second, there are also now the PSU dividends which are improving because their valuations have gone up really high. And their performance is also now substantially increased. So revenue mobilization is not just tax-based, you have non-tax revenue mobilizations which are also coming up. Then we had, for almost now 3 years, been talking about asset monetization, which is not selling of assets, but optimum utilization of those assets which are lying in the form of unutilized stadiums or land which is available with PSUs which can be utilized for better purposes. That's a third one. Fourth, you're also looking at generating resources from newer areas. So in all those, the revenue is going to be mobilized better, and as a result of which the revenue foregone will be now made up for, is our expectation. We've said that in the budget. In my speech itself, I mentioned it, and I'm sure there are secretaries who will want to add to it. Sanjay?
Ma'am, I'll give the for details. 37,000 crore, 29,000 crore in direct taxes, and 8,000 crore in indirect taxes. So 29,000 crore direct taxes primarily comprises of 3 taxes, which is the increase in the STT only on derivatives, which is only on futures and options, and secondly the buyback tax, which is to be now done in the hands of the recipient. While on the one hand it will rationalize the tax and be more equitous and fair, because those who should be paying the taxes, higher taxes, in the higher income groups, they will pay higher tax, and those who are in nil tax category or in lower tax category, they don't have to pay a tax or a lower tax. While it does that, at the same time it does bring in some revenue also, about 4,000 crore, and remaining about 15,000 crore should come from the capital gains taxes. On the indirect taxes, we are losing, as I said, about 8,000 crore primarily on the reduction in duties, especially in gold. There is a huge reduction from 15% to 6%. And then there is revenue foregone because of the personal income tax rates and the standard deduction being allowed in the new tax regime.
280, please. Backside, please. Give the mic.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Surbhi from Business Today. Ma'am, the angel tax has been abolished, which is a very welcome move. But just wanted to understand that one of the things the angel tax was also doing was checking money laundering concerns. So could you explain how these will be taken care of now? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to hear it is welcome. You've been raising this issue as with many others outside of media also saying, are you considering it? Although it was introduced during the UPA government and it was introduced in 2012. 2 years had passed, and since after that when we came in, we tried keeping as is good governance principle, government being a continuum, the tax continued. Although we tried giving carve-outs for startups and also making it simpler, bringing parity for the non-resident Indians, the way in which they've been treated as opposed to the Indian investments and so on. Today we've announced that we will indeed remove it. Exactly the details, Sanjay, would you want to elaborate on it?
Yes, sure, ma'am. So we should be aware that this is actually a tax measure. It's not really a money laundering issue, but money laundering issue was being tackled through a tax measure. So first of all, I want to clarify that this tax, there are other provisions in the income tax itself, first of all, to find out the source of these funds. Number two, there is already, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which continues to be in existence. So if there is money which is being laundered, money, being paid as a bribe, or for use in, other purposes for terrorism, etc., there are enough laws, including the Nyaya Sahita, Bharatiya Nyaya Sahita, and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act to take care of those issues. While on the other hand, now some genuine money for investment, actually, there is this deterrent provision no longer exists, while provisions for money laundering remain, and they should be sufficient to cater to it.
I would add that there are also certain provisions of the Companies Act which can be invoked if there is deliberate undervaluation of shares. So there are other legal remedies. The balance here is between preventing money laundering but accidentally also preventing investment. So that balance is what we are seeking to get it right.
211 backside. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Prakash Predashi from ET Now. My question is, will the increased STT be applicable from April 1 or prospective? And if from April 1, will there be retrospective tax calculation for the increased amount?
It's not retrospective. It is with effect from 1st of October 2024. So we are giving sufficient time for the exchanges and the people, who collect this tax to put their systems in place to be able to collect it. It's not retrospective, it is prospective.
13. 11. 11.
Ma'am, Karishma here from Business Today. Ma'am, congratulations to you and everybody. Ma'am, my question is on this special assistance to Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. 15,000 crore is the number that you've given for Andhra Pradesh for this financial year. Is there further assistance that you are looking at, or is it going to be need-based in terms of the amount?
I've already mentioned in the budget speech that 15,000 crore is coming through the multilateral development assistance, which we borrow from the multilateral banks, whether it is World Bank or ADB or AIB, whatever. And I've also ended that paragraph by saying further assistance will also be extended.
There is no definitive amount?
No.
152.
मैम आलोक प्रियदर्शी फ्रॉम सीएनबीसी आवाज में मैम सवाल यही है कि जिस तरह से आप लोग न्यू टैक्स रिजीम को प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, इस बार भी आप लोगों ने स्लैब में चेंज किया, स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन बढ़ाया, तो ये मान के चलें कि न्यू टैक्स रिजीम के जरिए आप मिडिल क्लास को राहत देने की कोशिश की है इस बार। ओल्ड टैक्स रिजीम को लेकर क्या कोई सनसेट क्लॉज है? क्योंकि आपने कहा है कि जो इनकम टैक्स एक्ट है उसका हम लोग कंप्रिहेंसिव रिव्यू करेंगे, तो रिव्यू में क्या ये मान के चले कोई सनसेट टाइम आएगा ओल्ड टैक्स रिजीम को लेकर?
अभी मैं बोल नहीं सकती हूँ। जरूर हमारी इरादा ये है कि सिंपलर टैक्सेशन रजीम होना चाहिए, और सिंपल टैक्स रजीम की ओर अगर हम जा रहे हैं ये रिव्यू के द्वारा, वो ही हमारी मकसद होगा कि सिंपल कर दो। ओल्ड टैक्स रजीम को सिंपल करने के रास्ते पर ही ये नया टैक्स रजीम आया है। सनसेट होगा कि नहीं होगा वो अभी मैं बोल नहीं सकती हूँ, वो रिव्यू करने के बाद ही हम एक डिसीजन लेंगे।
और ये एक आंकड़ा मैं आपको दे दूं कि इस बार पिछली बार जो हमने परिवर्तन किए थे नई टैक्स प्रणाली में, तो 70% लोग अभी तक जो 4 करोड़ के लगभग हमारे पास में रिटर्न प्राप्त हुए हैं पिछले वर्ष के, 70% ने इसको प्रेफर किया है बनिस्बत की पुरानी प्रणाली को। तो बड़ी तेजी से लोग नई प्रणाली की ओर आकर्षित हो रहे हैं और हमारा यही प्रयास रहेगा.
Yes.
Yes, ongoing filing period. Yes. Not
filing.
yet.
Not yet. I mean, more returns are coming in. Yes.
271.
Hi, ma'am. This is Sumit Chaturvedi, ET now. Ma'am, the corporate tax for foreign companies has been slashed to 35%. I want to understand the broad intent of this intention behind this decision, and what kind of benefits to economy, increase in investment you are expecting.
You've, in your own question, answered it. We want more investment to come into this country. So that is why it has been brought down.
$95.
Just to add to that, there was a widened differential between foreign and domestic companies which arose after the tax cut in 2019. When the domestic rates were cut, the foreign rates were not cut. So there was a widening of the gap. With today's change, there is still a higher rate of tax for foreign companies, but it is not now disproportionately higher than domestic. And therefore, this is something where, according to the feedback received from industry, we expect more foreign companies to invest now that this regime is adjusted in this manner.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Pal Singh from Outlook Business. You have earmarked a significant allocation towards rural infrastructure today. So how much of a boost to consumption and overall demand are we expecting here from this allocation happening?
So it is difficult to quantify what would be the accretion to demand coming from. I mean, the obvious increase is whatever we have increased. But yes, would there be a multiplier? Probably yes. I think with the Awas Yojana Gramin and the Gram Sadak Yojana, these two do have a lot of multiplier effects as well. Traditionally, for capital expenditure, the multiplier has been calculated at somewhere around 2.5 to 3. In the Awas Yojana, it may be a little lower. But yes, there would be a substantial multiplier. I don't have a precise calculation.
But other than the Awas Yojana and Sadak Yojana, Gram Sadak Yojana, there's a major push towards the corridors. For instance, I mentioned in the context of Bihar, I mentioned in the context of Andhra, 2 corridors which are moving, one from Visakhapatnam to Chennai, the other moving from Hyderabad to Bangalore, Buxar, Purnia, and so on, and building of the Gaya node in the Amritsar to Kolkata are all towards building infrastructure in the rural areas in order that we attract more investment and enable transit of goods in those huge corridors. All these are essentially going to the rural areas in a big way. And therefore, it is not just through PM Awas Yojana and Sadak Yojana, but major investments in strengthening the corridors, building nodes, and therefore also in improving the rural infrastructure is happening.
11.
Ma'am, I'm Maria Shakir from NDTV and NDTV Profit. Congratulations for creating history today by becoming the only finance minister for having presented 7 consecutive budgets. Ma'am, my question to you is about the first-timer scheme. Because as you said, that employment perhaps sums up the essence of this budget. Would there be more blueprint coming out as to how this first-timers scheme will be playing out, and what will be the role of private sector?
Just 1 minute. See, this Prime Minister's package that I announced has 5 different schemes. The first timers is, I would think, one of the very, very innovative initiative. So what we are doing there is to be able to provide first timers 1 whole month's salary as subsidy. And this will be put into their account as direct benefit transfer, but possibly in tranches. When an employer picks up a first timer, and this is through the EPFO that you get to know that they have paid their provident fund amounts, And therefore, the first-timer indicator that we are talking about will be established. So they can't just say one of the existing employee is a first-timer and claim it. There are enough checks and balances in the system to make sure that indeed the first-timer is coming in. And then the first-timers will be put through that learning curve, and this will help them to acquire skills so that they become fully productive. This kind of a subsidy giving, one, you give the first one month's salary. Two, you're also giving both for the employee and for the employer subsidy. So the applicable person for whom it is being given may even draw a wage up to 1 lakh rupees. But to the extent of 15,000 is what you're giving as a subsidy. The installments, as I said, for the first 1 month wage that you want to give will be done over 3 installments, direct into the first-time employee's account. One compulsory measure that we are bringing in there is to make sure that the employee undergoes online financial literacy course before claiming the second installment from the government. So he may be a qualified engineer, he may be a diploma holder, he's a first-time employee in an office, he becomes a first-time employee and the employer also claims that he's been recruited. We try giving him the 15,000 rupees. He may have a salary of 1 lakh, but up to 15,000 rupees is what we are going to give. And in that, if you're giving 3 installments, the first installment will be given. But before he draws the second installment, he should undergo an online financial literacy course so that he can claim the second one. So we are not training him in engineering, we are training him in financial literacy. Post that, of course, the place where he goes to work, he's going to be working in any case. Then subsidy to be refunded if in case the employer removes him from the work within 12 months. So the employer gets a subsidy as well, but he will have to refund it if within 12 months this first-time employer has been removed out of the work. This will cover, and we expect it to cover, 1 crore persons per annum. And the scheme will run for 2 years. So up to 24 months, you can have new employees brought in, new first-time employees brought in, for whom the government will give 15,000 rupees as, from our side, 1 month, what we think, 1 month's salary. Although his salary may be any amount, but to a cap of 1 lakh. And then he undergoes some financial literacy course, post which the second installment and the third installments can be withdrawn, put into his account. But most important is, if the employer removes him within 12 months, the employer will have to refund the subsidy given to the employer. So that's how that scheme works.
278.
If I may just add, details are available in the budget speech in the annexure on page 31. So there are details of all the 5 schemes in this package. If you go through them, there's considerable amount of detail which you can get.
Hi, good evening. This is Priyashmita from Informist. I have 2 points from the budget that I would like to ask. The first is nominal GDP has been pegged at 10.5%. And we have seen that growth is on a high momentum, and even the RBI has pegged growth at 7.2%. And the Econ survey said that it is going to be between 6.5 to 7%. So a 10.5% nominal GDP looks a little conservative. What is your view on it? And the second is that there's a mention that beyond FY26, you would want to reduce your debt to GDP. And you've mentioned that, the 4% debt to GDP it's a thing of the past. So what do you think is a sustainable debt to GDP or a desirable debt to GDP at this point? Thank you.
What was the first question again?
Conservative nominal GDP projection.
See, 10.5% could be a combination of 7% growth and 3.5% GDP deflator. So a combination of wholesale price plus consumer price could easily be 3.5%. That's a very likely scenario. So 7 plus 3.5, yes, it is slightly conservative, but I don't think it is way off what is likely. Or it could be 6.5% growth and 4% inflation as per the deflator. So I think the number is reasonable, slightly conservative, yes, but we would prefer to achieve the numbers. Second, on the path after 26-27, which has been outlined in the Finance Minister's speech at the end of the Part A. So the commitment, as she has mentioned, is to endeavor to reduce the debt to GDP every year. That is in future the fiscal consolidation path. What is the percentage that would result in that fiscal consolidation is not something that we are disclosing here today or can disclose today. It will depend on circumstances, but there is a commitment to lower the debt to GDP ratio. So if every year it has to be reduced, there will necessarily have to be a particular level of deficit which we cannot exceed. And that will depend on prevailing growth rates, interest rates, and the other parameters which go into the calculation of the debt dynamics. But I can tell you that it is most likely to be a figure not above 4.5%.
249.
मैं सुनील सौरभ बोल रहा हूँ। मैं आप पहले तो आपको काफ़ी बधाई दे दूंगी, बहुत अच्छा बजट आपने पेश की है। दूसरा मुझे ये जानना है कि रेलवे के लिए क्या कुछ खास रहा बजट में?
Which organization you are from?
कौन सा पत्रिका से?
पेपर में हूँ, लोक भारती पेपर है।
सॉरी?
लोक भारती।
लोक भारती।
जी हाँ। तो पहले तो बधाई दे दिया हूँ मैं आपका, बहुत अच्छा बजट आपने पेश की है और रिकॉर्ड भी की है, 7 साल से लगातार आप वित्त मंत्री के रूप में काम। मेरा कहना है कि रेलवे के लिए क्या कुछ खास हुआ, क्योंकि कोई जानकारी हम लोग को अभी तक नहीं मिली कि रेलवे के लिए क्या गया है। दूसरा, मैं रेलवे में सीनियर सिटीजन्स को कंसेशन मिलता था, आप यहाँ पीआईबी में है, पीआईबी जर्नलिस्ट को भी कंसेशन मिलता था। कोरोना में वो बंद हो गया, कोरोना को ख़त्म हुए भी 2-3 साल हो गए हैं, तो फिर से ये बहाल नहीं हुआ। क्या इसकी उम्मीदें हम लोग कर सकते हैं कि आगे बहाल होगी या नहीं?
रेलवे का जो एक्सपेंडिचर बजट है नेक्स्ट ईयर, इट्स 255,393 crores, which is the highest ever, and it's a very substantial increase in recent years. So that is a very large amount of investment in the railway. So I think there is a very adequate provision.
जर्नलिस्ट के लिए
ठीक है, सुना।
277 प्लीज।
इसमें सीनियर सिटीजन और पीआईबी जर्नलिस्ट को भी जो स्लैब में रिवीजन हुआ है उसमें फायदा है। सीनियर सिटीजन्स को फैमिली पेंशन में स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन का फायदा हुआ है। रेलवे में, अच्छा ठीक।
हेलो मैम, दिस साइड हर्ष कुमार, दिस साइड फ्रॉम बिजनेस।
वो बजट का फायदा जो दिया है सर, वो भी तो मिलेगा सीनियर सिटीजन्स को और सबको, रेलवे में भी मिलेगा।
Hello ma'am, Harsh Kumar this side from Business Standard newspaper. Ma'am, during your speech you mentioned about the FDI liberalization. Can you give a bit detail about it?
We are trying to, since 2014, bring in ease of doing business in India, and in every sector where there was only 26% allowed for FTA, we raised it to 49, and then where it is possible we've raised it to 74, and so on. So there's been a consistent, continuing effort to relax our policy towards FTA. First it went sector by sector, then there was this approach taken so that most of which can go through the automatic route. So in that process, further simplification, if necessary, we are willing to do, is what is conveyed.
Also, ma'am, you have like increased the Mudra loan limit to 20 lakhs, like that cap. So can we expect the increase in Shishu, Tarun, like their types increase? So how much it will be? Can you give detail on that?
We've said this only today. See how this works.
Okay, thank you.
I request you to please one question each person. 123, please. Here.
Shrimi Chaudhary here from Business Standard. I just wanted to understand that budget proposes withdrawal of equalization levy. So if you could just give some explanation of what led to that, what is the intention behind that, keeping in mind the pact between India and US, which has ended on June 30th.
No, as the Pillar 1, Pillar 2 negotiations have been going on since 22. And since then, one of the things which was becoming more than obvious was, if at all we are going through this Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, which we intend to, the negotiations and the OECD, backed by the US administration, have all been pushing for this. We wanted a fair solution, so negotiations have been going on. But the point of contention from then has always been, should we collect an equalization levy then, if at all we are getting into this global understanding through the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. In any case, for India, equalization levy also meant for those who are living abroad that you were holding it, but eventually they are going to only adjust it somewhere. So in the interest of moving towards Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 solution, which the negotiations are still going on one aspect of it, on the other, in all probability, we are close to a conclusion. It was necessary for us, through the Parliament, to take steps to ensure that we are entering into that scheme of things without this equalization levy hanging on us, because this was important for us, but if it is a global system, this cannot continue. And therefore, with a positive approach towards the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, we've moved forward to inform the Parliament that we would like to close this.
270.
I may clarify that it is only the 2% levy which has been withdrawn. The 6% levy which was earlier imposed, that continues. That has already been collected. We'll see. I mean, it is only this withdrawal is only prospective.
Ruchika from Business Standard this side. Ma'am, the miscellaneous capital receipts have seen an increase in this budget to almost 50,000 crore. Is there the miscellaneous capital receipts?
Okay.
Can you share the government's game plan as to how will we achieve this increase?
The miscellaneous capital receipts are budgeted as 50,000 crore, which was like 23-24 also. It was 51,000 crore, the interim budget. Now it's 50,000 crore, 24-25, and this combines with all kinds of receipts which are otherwise disinvestment receipts, asset monetization receipts, and other kinds, which will be clubbed with that. So this budgeted figure is 50,000 crore.
Ma'am, very good evening. Sapna Das here from CNBC. Ma'am, two questions. On the incentive-like employment scheme that you have announced, 2 lakh odd crore is your overall fiscal envelope over the duration of the scheme. Could you give us a sense as to, we are already almost halfway through the current financial year by the time you pass the budget. So practically around 7 months will remain for the financial year, but any kind of an allocation that you have done for this scheme for this year, ma'am? One is that. And ma'am, just a corollary also on the miscellaneous receipts question, though not very much part of this budget, but nevertheless, ma'am, government had a very, kind of a bold privatization program. Do we understand that this is now being calibrated? That's it, ma'am. Thank you.
First question. As you rightly observed, there are only this is not a full financial year. The schemes have just been announced. They will now go through a process of quick design, appraisal, and approval. However, budget provisions have been made for these schemes, partly in the Ministry of Labour and Employment and partly in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the internship scheme. So from memory, I can be corrected. I think it's 2,000 crores has been provided for the internships in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and about 5,000 crores has been provided in the current year in the Ministry of Labour and Employment. But we stand committed to funding them fully to the extent that may actually be required. These are just very rough estimates based on how much time it might take to kick off.
Can you start banking?
Digital India mission will be utilized with active use of technology tools. New pension scheme. The committee to review the NPS has made considerable progress in its work. I am happy that the staff side of the National Council of the Joint Consultative Machinery for Central Government Employees has taken a constructive approach. A solution will be evolved which addresses the relevant issues while maintaining fiscal prudence to protect the common citizens. Budget estimates for 24-25. For the year 24-25, total receipts other than borrowings and the total expenditure are estimated at 32.07 lakh crore rupees and 48.21 lakh crore rupees respectively. The net tax receipts are estimated at 25.83 lakh crore rupees. The fiscal deficit is estimated at 4.9% of the GDP. The gross and the net market borrowings through dated securities during 24-25 are estimated at 14.01 lakh crore rupees and 11.63 lakh crore rupees respectively. Both will be less than that in 23-24. The fiscal consolidation path announced by me in 2021 has served our economy very well, and we aim to reach the deficit below 4.5% next year. The government is committed to staying the course. From 2026-27 onwards, our endeavor will be to keep the fiscal deficit each year such that the central government's debt will be on a declining path as percentage of GDP. Land-related reforms and actions, both in the rural and urban areas, will cover land administration, will cover 1. Land administration, planning and management, and 2. Urban planning usage and building bylaws. These will be incentivized for completion within the next 3 years through appropriate fiscal support. Rural land-related actions. Rural land-related actions will include 1. Assignment of unique land parcel identification number, UL PIN, or Bhu Aadhaar for all lands. 2. Digitization of cadastral maps. 3. Survey of subdivisions, survey of map subdivisions as per current ownership. 4. Establishment of land registry. And 5. Linking to the farmers registry. These actions will also facilitate credit flow and other agricultural services. Urban land-related actions. Land records in urban areas will be digitized with GIS mapping. An IT-based system for property record administration, updating, and tax administration will be established. These will also facilitate improving the financial position of urban local bodies. Labor-related reforms. Services to labor. Our government will facilitate the provision of a wide array of services to labor, including those for employment and skilling. A comprehensive integration of e-Shram portal with other portals will facilitate such one-stop solution. Open architecture databases for the rapidly changing labor market, skill requirements, and available job roles, and a mechanism to connect job aspirants with potential employers and skill providers will be covered in these services. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan Portal. Shram Suvidha and Samadhan Portal will be revamped to enhance ease of compliance for industry and trade. Capital and entrepreneurship related reforms, financial sector vision and strategy. For meeting financing needs of the economy, our government will bring out a financial sector vision and strategy document to prepare the sector in terms of size, capacity, and skills. This will set the agenda for the next 5 years and guide the work of the government, regulators, financial institutions, and market participants. Taxonomy for